Joining me now, a gentleman who spends his work weeks on Capitol Hill, Congressman Larry Buschon of Indiana, member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Larry, we just heard what Senator McConnell said to the Fox News channel last week. Both the House and Senate, in essence, have put the Keystone Pipeline at the top of the agenda.
Well, I think that this is about job creation. And it's about, for the president, it's about politics, JD, because the State Department's conducted 5 reviews encompassing over 22,000 pages, showing that this is in the best interest of our economy and the environment. The State Department itself said 42,100 jobs, many temporary, of course, but all infrastructure projects are temporary jobs. So this is about politics. This isn't about the facts, and I think the House showed that last week. We had a bipartisan vote, and I think we'll have 63 votes or so in the Senate, and we'll see what the president decides.
Well, the president has changed his rhetorical stance somewhat. I mean, before the election, he was a little vague about the pipeline, but in the wake of Republicans retaking the Senate and building on your majority in the House, suddenly he trumpets this veto. So mindful of that, do you believe that in both the House and the Senate, enough votes can be put together to override this telegraphed presidential veto?
Well, I'll speak for the House. I don't think we'll have the votes in the House, honestly, because Minority Leader Pelosi came out last week said they're going to take a hard line and stick with the president, which I think is unfortunate, and she's going to twist the arms of many of her members to not help us override the veto. In the Senate, I think there is a real opportunity. We have, as you know, 63 votes, and we need 4 votes more. And I think, once the Democrats see what happens in the public eye, so to speak, or in the media, once the president vetoes the bill, that we may very well be able to get those 4 votes. But in the House, I think it's going to be difficult, but I'm hopeful.
Well, Larry, there's been so much attention given to alleged Republican, we'll call it discussion, prior to the leadership votes and the opening of this new Congress. A lot of people haven't taken a look at the changing atmosphere within the Democratic minority. And I understand you're a member of the House Republican Conference. You don't have access to meetings of the Democrat caucus, yet there are reports that a lot of members who are more moderate than Leader Pelosi are ready to take action against her. Do you believe that that group could reach a critical mass and perhaps prompt peeling off the votes necessary for the veto override that you say right now is unlikely?
Well, that very well could happen. Last week when it was reported broadly across the media in Washington, D.C. and around the country that there is dissension within the Democrat caucus in the House, specifically because many of the more moderate Democrats are being told by their voters, the people that they represent, that the far left agenda of their leadership is not the direction that has been voted for by the American people. So even though I think it's unlikely we'll have the votes, you never know if that caucus portion of the Democrats decides to go against the Speaker, we could get there. I'm hopeful that they will, but I think it's unlikely.
Larry, you are on the Energy and Commerce Committee. I served on the Ways and Means Committee. There was a healthy rivalry between the two committees. At times it would deal with medical issues, and you certainly know whereof you speak on that as a medical doctor. To set the stage for our next discussion following the break, do you know exactly how many doctors are now serving in the House of Representatives?
Well, there's I think right around 16 or so. I can't remember the exact number because some things have changed. But almost all Republicans. We have a couple on the Democrat side in the House, but we have a significant amount of influence on medical issues. I think that we have key leaders like Tom Price from Georgia, who has and others who have been out front on many of the health care issues. So we have enough physicians that we want to be helpful, and we meet with the leadership as we did last week.
And mindful of that, Larry Buschon, when we come back with one of those doctors in the House, we're going to talk about Obamacare and a sports connection from over the weekend. There's more ahead with Congressman Buschon here on America's Forum. Let's talk to one of the doctors who serves in the House, heart surgeon Larry Buschon, a congressman, a Republican congressman from Indiana, who is very generous with his time, staying with us through the break. Now, Congressman, I saw that spot, and it just kind of irked me because the NFL Players Association has a contract mandated maximum of $800 annual deductibles for families. That's a whole lot different than Obamacare, isn't it?
Well, it's dramatically different considering the fact that we're hearing on many of the exchanges you have a $5,000 individual deductible and $10,000 a family deductible on some plans, on some of the bronze plans, if you can't afford more than that. So, I think this is another instance where, celebrities really should stay out of issues that they don't understand. I understand why they did it. I think they're political supporters of the president, but in general, I think it's not helpful to have celebrities or other people of notoriety speak on things that they basically don't understand.
Well, let me ask you about your understanding of what can be done to combat Obamacare. Do you believe the legislation is beyond repeal?
Well, I think, first of all, I think, it can't be fixed. And what I tell people is fundamentally, the first thing you have to understand about the president is he believes in a single-payer health care system, and so did Ms. Sebelius. So everything they talk about is based on that. And I think the law, honestly, was designed to eventually, skeptically I can say, fall on its own weight so that everyone would go and say, well, now we need nationalized health care. I mean, maybe that's a skeptical view, but that's what's happening. And I think, when you try to fight back against the president, you have to understand what he believes. And so I don't believe the law can be fixed. I think it's a government approach. And at the end of the day, around the world, government systems ration and don't have the money to pay it. You see what happened just recently in Vermont when they tried to do it at the state level, and it was a failure because it can't be paid for without massive tax increases. The big problem is the cost of health care. Obamacare doesn't address that at all.
Well, Larry, 60 Minutes on CBS ran a compelling report last night on what Obamacare does not do. We'll hear from Stephen Brill in his interview with Leslie Stahl and get your reaction on the back end, okay?
This is a non-profit hospital. What does non-profit mean?
It means they don't pay taxes. That's the first thing.
They don't pay any taxes.
Yeah. But they've created in healthcare an alternate universe economy where everybody except the doctors and the nurses makes a ton of money. And nobody is holding them accountable, and Obamacare does zero to change any of that.
Larry, you heard Stephen Brill there. Do you agree with what he had to say?
I think fundamentally I do agree, because that's why trying to fix the healthcare system, with one big piece of legislation without thoughtfully looking at what the real problems are that are driving the cost doesn't work. And I think, I've practiced medicine as a heart surgeon for 15 years, and there are layers and layers and layers of people between the patient and the provider, and that has built up over the years. So it seems counterintuitive to think that that having health insurance is actually driving the cost up, but that's exactly what's happened. Our third-party payer system, needs revisions and changes. I still think we need a robust private sector health insurance system, along with the government, as we provide Medicare and Medicaid and the VA system. But yes, it's fundamentally a system that economically is very flawed, and it's going to take a while to straighten that out.
And Larry, in the minute that remains, mindful of the fact, and we talked about the veto pin the president might use on the Keystone XL pipeline, if you guys were to vote for complete repeal, he would veto it. So would you come back with what might be low-hanging fruit, for example, repealing the medical device tax?
Absolutely. I think that we should do that. I think the medical device tax for my state, Indiana, is very important. We have over 300 device companies, but it's also a driving costs up for the consumers. So we should address that. Last week, as you know, we addressed the 40-hour work week. listen, school districts in my district are cutting people's hours to 29 hours a week. The Democrats on the floor saying that's not happening is just not true. So, yes, we should address things that are low-hanging fruit, and I'm hopeful that the President and Democrats in the Senate will support that.
Fair enough. Larry Buschon, Republican Congressman from Indiana, thanks for your time.